What's good, y'all? I'm back, and when I say I'm back, it might sound a little silly because for you guys, nothing has changed, but for me, I haven't really sat down to do this in a number of days. Maybe a week, I don't know. I've been a little busy, but we're back. We're late, like always. Maybe I should change my name to just getting the shit late all the time productions. But we're talking about Ballerina from the world of John Wick. It's a spinoff regarding the Ruska Roma, which you may remember from John Wick Chapter 3, where the ballerinas were in that movie, where John had to go to get his ticket torn so that he could get out of the country and all that good jazz. This movie was announced quite a while ago, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. It took a little while to get off the ground. Now there's whispers and murmurs that the movie was supposed to release like a year ago, but it did not test well with test audiences, so they had to redo it in certain places and put John Wick into the movie to make sure that it sold. I believe that. And that's not to say that this movie isn't good or that it doesn't hold up as a film in the John Wick franchise, because if we're being honest, it does. I think that the choreography is just as good as it's always been. There's something interesting about the difference between Eve, who is the main character of this movie, and John, where John is this like Terminator, Grim Reaper, boogeyman type character, obviously. Um, he feels unstoppable to people that live in the world of John Wick, but we're following his perspective at all times. So we get to see when he's tired, when he's worn down, when he's vulnerable, because he takes his lumps and bruises, and he gets knocked around. He gets pretty badly hurt in each film. He fell off a building in the third one. And so there's a little bit of like, we get to observe him as the myth because we're not following him in this movie. That's really interesting. But Eve is not like that. Eve is not this force of nature that the world fears, mostly because she's a rookie. Now, I will say that she feels just as efficient at turning people into corpses as John does. She maybe kills just as many people in this movie as he did in the first one. The first one specifically, because I think the kill count just gets higher and higher in each film after that. Or it might still be Chapter 2 where he kills the most people. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to rewatch them. Which, I mean, sounds like a fun task, but I gotta rewatch the whole MCU, so I gotta use my time wisely. Point is, she is a rookie, but she's also still highly effective and highly trained, and you get to see her training, which is nice. And the fact that she is a woman and a small woman comes into play. It's a point of discussion that she's always going to be smaller and weaker than the people that she's going up against, and she needs to figure out a way to manipulate the battle so that she can create a situation for herself to win. I like that. I think it's really interesting to show her being creative and inventive in the field when she's out here getting these kills. There is one portion of the movie, which you've probably already seen it, where she's using grenades, because she's typically always got a weapon, because she kind of needs to. She's got grenades, and there's one particular kill she gets with a grenade that I'm like, oh, so she just blew herself up. She's dead. Like that, like, I find it difficult to believe that she survived that and is completely unharmed. She's got a little bit of that good old John Wick plot armor, but that's kind of to be expected. I want to talk briefly about the pacing of this film, because like the very beginning of it, pretty exciting, pretty interesting, pretty cool. The next 30 minutes or so, not so much. There's a lot of build up, a lot of slow burn, and that's not new to the franchise. But the first movie is really the only one that has that, When you're watching John Wick 1 for the first time, it also takes its time. It takes a minute to get where it's going, because it doesn't even seem like it's going to be that kind of, high-octane, high-velocity action film that it eventually evolves into as time goes on. It takes maybe 30 minutes to start getting there, but once it gets there, it completely shifts into what feels like a completely different genre, and then it never stops until John Wick Chapter 4 is over. Each movie after that, it just goes, So it's been over 10 years since we've really had to deal with that type of slow burn, methodical build-up to the action in a John Wick film. it was a little jarring. That's what I'll say about that. It's not bad. It's not boring. It's not like, you know, it doesn't take you out of it. But then once that switch gets flipped, just like the first movie, it's just boom, 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 and it doesn't stop until it's over. That's much appreciated for me. Ana de Armas is also obviously incredible in this movie, just like she is in every movie I've ever seen her in. Even though I think Knock Knock is a terrible movie, she's good in it. She's great in Knives Out. I heard she's good in that Marilyn Monroe film. What's it called? Blonde? I don't know. She's good in Blade Runner. You know, I have not disliked her in anything that I've seen her in before. The movies that she gets put in, though, sometimes it seems like her agent doesn't like her very much. But this is not one of those situations. I do want to touch on something, though, because of the fact that John, as you've seen from the trailers and from the poster, because of the fact that John is in this movie, you have to wonder, when does it take place? Because John Wick's Chapter 1, 2, and 3 take place over the course of maybe a couple of weeks. You know, the second movie takes place a day or two after the first one, and the third one starts 5 minutes after the second one. And then there's a good bit of time, a few months in between 3 and 4. That's the time period during which this movie takes place. Like, once the plot starts, like the main plot, you see the moment from Chapter 3 where John comes back to the Ruska Roma, and that's where Eve and John first interact. And then there's a 2-month time skip, and that's when the rest of the movie takes place. That's the only point in time, really, that it could have taken place in order for John to be active and alive. Not that I believe John is dead, but the world believes that John is dead. So if he's going to be in this movie and operational and functional, it has to be before Chapter 4 takes place. But guys, he's excommunicado, you know? And he's not just excommunicado. I believe his contract is like 20 million plus, right? Like, everything that he did in the third movie, and the fact that none of it helped. Because what was he supposed to do? I can't remember. Was he supposed to kill Winston in the third movie? And that was going to be like the thing that got him back in, and he just refused? I don't remember. I'd have to rewatch it again. It's been a couple of years. None of that is a point in this movie. What I'm trying to say is that this is the point in time where John is the most wanted before Chapter 4, obviously, when his bounty goes up to like 50 or 60 million. I can't remember exactly. But there are people all over the world willing to take a shot at John to get that money. And the beginning of Chapter 4 makes it seem like this is when he's just laying low, getting ready to go take on the high table like he does in the fourth movie. It was my understanding that apart from like the Bowery King and maybe Winston and maybe Charon, nobody had seen John since he fell off the roof of the Continental before he popped up in Osaka in Chapter 4. So his cavalier attitude, I suppose, in just walking around in this movie, killing people pretty much in broad daylight, being operational, and then it's just like, oh, well, I'll just give an order not to engage. I don't buy it. And it feels like a plot hole, if we're being 100% honest. I don't think John would be so foolish as to put himself in that position, because not only does he have to trust that nobody in this particular area where this portion of the movie takes place is going to disobey the order and take a shot at him, he has to trust that he's able to get all the way here. You know? And I just, based on the way that he operates in Chapters 3 and 4, he doesn't do anything without thinking it through first and like coming up with a plan for exactly who he's going to call in a favor from, where he's going to go, and what he's going to do. I don't think he would just answer a call and boom, he's over here. Maybe it's because of his connection to the Ruska Roma. I don't know. Whatever. It's not a huge deal. It doesn't ruin your enjoyment of the movie. What it does do, though, unfortunately, is kind of pull attention away from Eve. When John Wick is on screen, you just want more of John Wick. You want John Wick Chapter 5 to come out as soon as possible. And obviously from the trailer, you do get to see that the two of them are going to fight. The fight between the two of them has to be very carefully crafted. John Wick is kind of like Darth Vader, And what I mean by that is he is this unstoppable killing machine that in universe people are afraid to even say his name, right? So the more that Darth Vader pops up and gets beaten by random characters, or even damaged by them or hurt by them in any way, you know, and that's not to call Obi-Wan Kenobi a random character, but seeing him get his ass beat by Obi-Wan and seeing him get hurt pretty bad by like Seer Junda, like the more fights he loses and or does not win outright, the more you damage the character's reputation. And so for John Wick, it's a similar situation where obviously Eve is the main character of the movie, so you cannot allow John to just kill her. But John Wick is John Wick, so Eve can't win the fight either. And so you have to come up with a reason that John wouldn't just kill her instantly, even though he very easily could, and creates several scenarios for himself where he could just take her out and be done with it. And I think as far as the way that John Wick is characterized in the movie and the context of that particular fight, I think they do a good job of utilizing John in this movie without tarnishing the character or damaging his legacy in any particular way. All of that being said, though, it's a good movie. I know I've been rambling for a little bit, but I don't know. It's got a lot to live up to by, you know, being a John Wick film, because the movie started out so simple, but now it's become this huge big thing where you have room for all these spin-offs. I will say Norman Reedus was criminally underused. Like, they put him on the poster, and you think that, okay, Norman Reedus is a pretty big star, they're going to give him a pretty big role. He's got 3.5 minutes of screen time, and the movie just moves on. I forgot he was in it. Forgot he was in it until he popped back up, but, I don't know. Maybe it's true that this movie just got edited all to shit. I don't know. Do we have a sequel coming along the pipeline? Depends on how well this movie does. I actually haven't looked at the box office numbers, but the way that this movie ends is very John Wick Chapter 2-ish. So I assume that they want to do a sequel. I'd be down for that. I really enjoyed this movie, and if I were to give it a score from 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7.5. Now, I'm not IGN, okay? But I also, okay, it's time to get on my soapbox a little bit. You guys, not you, right? You, right now, watching the video, I know you're a normal person, and I know you're not going to freak out about this, but a lot of people out there need to learn how to hear that something is a 7 out of 10 and not freak out. Because a 7 is not a bad score. You know, 5 and below is a bad score. You know, if I give a movie a 1 to 3, it's butt ass. If I give it a 4 to 5, it's pretty bad. 6 to 7, pretty good. 8 to 9, great. 10, perfect. You know, I think that's I think that 7.5 is a pretty good score for a movie like this, but whatever. I'm sure. I don't know. And if you're going to go to the comments to talk about wokeness and the feminization of Hollywood or whatever, don't bother. You're just going to get banned, and you're not going to accomplish anything. So just save yourself the time. And I am going to go to bed because it's 4 in the morning. So I'll see you guys later.